for all intents and purposes, the deal is done. Carlos Baleba is set to become a Manchester United player after a £60 million move from Brighton and Hove Albion. Guys, it feels like an eon since I did a video talking about Yuri Tillemans and Andre Santos, and I was even asking in that video, please just get the Baleba deal done, excuse me. And here we are, under 48 hours from the start of the new season, and I can with confidence announce that he'll be playing for Manchester United. Let's kind of jump into the biggest question mark around this transfer, and that is, why did his evaluation go from 100 million to 60 in the span of hardly a year? I kind of have two key reasons to this. Here's the first. For one, his performances simply weren't great, right? The 24-25 season, he was a new kid on the block, being quoted at around 100 million. The biggest clubs in the world were looking towards him, especially United. I thought we were going to go after him eventually. We backed out because the fee was too much. And then kind of the second we backed out, the attention of the world focused itself towards one man, Elliot Anderson. He became the next big signing for whichever club. And also with that, Baleba's performances, they just dropped. He didn't seem to have the same bite he had the year prior. His impact on the game just felt noticeably less. And so I do think that does play a key reason onto why his value dropped by, almost 50%. But I do think there is something to say with his contract, right? And I'm going to try and explain this. I recommend just looking it up yourself. But from what I understand, in 2028, his contract will run out unless Brighton decide to trigger a 1-year extension, which carries him through until 2029. So with that, teams obviously know that the year before a player's contract runs out, it's kind of useless. That's where you're going to get the least amount of value, because teams will kind of realize, well, wait, if we've already waited 3 years to get Baleba, we just wait one more, and if Brighton don't extend his contract, we get him for free. So this really is the last summer for Brighton to negotiate and still get a decent amount of money worth for him. I mean, guys, when Brighton signed Baleba, if you had told them they would end up getting 60 million, I'm sure they would have taken that deal pretty quickly. I know it's not the 100 million, but I think because he didn't have a great season and because his contract is starting to run a little bit lower, this is really the last season where you can get a large amount of money for him. I hope I explained that well. Like I said, I recommend looking it up, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. But anyway, let's actually talk about the player, right? Because this is the most exciting part. I can finally say that Manchester United, I'm not going to say have a complete midfield, but have a competing midfield, right? I earlier today, in preparation for this video, I watched some film from him, and I especially really wanted to see just this past season. I didn't want to see when he was a breakout and he was on fire. I wanted to see how he played when he wasn't valued that highly, and when he was struggling to get into Fabian Herzler's side and struggling to get an impact. And even when I watched, some of his clips, I was still super impressed with him. I think he's a great tackler kind of out wide. I was surprised at how much he kind of got to the byline, pushing players out of bounds, winning the ball in tight spaces. I think that's exactly what United need. I have no doubt that Manchester United have a midfield that can pop triangles around the middle of the pitch. I get that. But out wide defending, I do think it's where we struggle. And Casemiro, because of his age, was never great at moving out wide and putting himself into open spaces. And I think Baleba is. So I think that is a massive plus. I think his ability to get out wide, really range around the whole entire midfield, is going to be massive for United. And something that I saw for his national team, Cameroon, I believe, he was kind of this long-range passer. I don't need that, guys. I really don't. I might be, looking at football in too much of a simplistic way here. I just need my number 6 or my deepest midfielder just make the tackle. Just win the ball back in a dangerous area. That is all I need. And especially with this United midfield, right? Yuri Tillemans can dictate play from deep. Kobbie Mainoo can dictate play. Bruno Fernandes can dictate play. Heck, even Mason Mount, Andre Santos, everyone can do that. I need someone who's going to win a majority of his tackles, not give away cheap fouls, win cheap fouls, and Baleba seems to have been able to do that even in his weaker years. Another thing that I do, of course, think is worth mentioning, guys, he's only 22 years old. He turns 23. I honestly don't know when he turns 23, but for right now, he's 22. So to me, his worst season came when he was 21, 22. That's fine. I mean, guys, I'm looking at Baleba as a player who in 8-10 years is still at Manchester United. I'm looking at someone for 2034, 2035 is still with this club. And when I kind of look at the squad, there's 5 or 6 players who I want to think to myself, hopefully he'll still be here in 5-10 years. And Baleba is one of them. So to get that in this market for only 60 million, I'm not going to say it's a steal, but it certainly is a good deal. Now, this kind of brings us to what is the best midfield, right? And in my opinion, it kind of writes itself. I believe Baleba is by far the deep-lying playmaker, deep-lying destroyer, whatever you want to call him, the number 6. So Baleba at the number 6. Yuri Tillemans is more the number 8, easily can be replaced with Kobbie Mainoo in my opinion. And then further up the pitch, Bruno is the team's number 10. And what I like about this midfield is that it was hard for me to, I know I said it writes itself, but I can easily replace Yuri Tillemans with Kobbie Mainoo. And I can, on a lot of days, replace Carlos Baleba with Andre Santos and not feel like a massive drop-off. I mean, guys, I was hearing rumors from big people that, you know, United were looking at training Mason Mount into like a deeper kind of midfielder. Holy crap. That almost made me cry, like out of fear of thinking that Mason Mount would ever have to play in a role outside of a playmaking, worker, industrious kind of 8 or a 10. There's so many things I'd rather see than Mason Mount be Manchester United's number 6. Sends shivers down my spine just thinking about that, right? And now I feel like we can finally have almost 2 midfields filled with talent, where now Mount can actually play as a number 10. Kobbie can still play as a number 8 and not have to play as a number 6. Andre Santos, you know, I know Brazil kind of view him as a Casemiro replacement. I'm a little bit questionable on that, but I think he can fill in decent enough as a number 6 or a number 8. This is finally the depth that we need in this position, right? I feel like we probably have enough of it up in the front. We definitely have enough of it mostly throughout the back. The midfield was where it was really lacking. And now I almost look at our midfield and I think to myself, is this debatably the strongest part of United's team? It very well may be. And just to wrap things up, a couple more points. I remember really all summer, there's been talk around who would be United's biggest signing, right? They signed Santos, they signed Tillemans a few days later, but is it going to be Lewis Hall at left back or this mystical third midfielder? Guys, let me tell you this. Please do not ever think that, you know, I wanted us to sign Lewis Hall over a third midfielder. Guys, I understand at left back, Luke Shaw, you know, can get injured walking down the stairs. And I can fully agree that next season he will not be playing in all the competitions, in every single match that we have. He will likely get injured. But I still believe in our depth. I still believe worst case we can play Patrick Dorgu at left back. I still believe worst case we can move Nusayr Mazraoui from right back to left back. Those options just seem so much better than the likes of squeezing a midfield 3 of Santos, Kobbie, and Mounts almost playing as a number 6, and then you have to move Kobbie up to a number 10, and then, you know, this different mix and match combinations that aren't working out well. While, of course, I would love for us to go out and sign Lewis Hall for 60 million, I'm okay. If this is the end of United's big business, I am fine. It is an A summer for me. We revamped the midfield like we had to, right? And there's kind of one last point I want to make, and this might even be a little bit unrelated to this video in general, but I really, you know, I've become a big fan of the way Ineos are attacking these deals. You know, I mentioned at the start, if I was United, I would have paid 100 million for Baleba. It would have hurt, but I would have done it last summer. And United 5-6 years ago, they would have paid 100 million for Baleba. And it's not just Baleba, guys. I mean, 10 years ago, we were signing Angel Di Maria. We were signing, 3 years ago, we were going after Cristiano Ronaldo. 4 years ago, we were going after Ronaldo. I mean, like, in all intents and purposes, I'm not going to say a washed Ronaldo because he still scored a lot. But United have had this problem of always going after the game's biggest players, right? And I see this tweet, and I know I'm asking for it being on Twitter in the first place, but I see this tweet literally like every single month. Oh, if I was Ed Woodward, United's kind of former higher up who was in charge of a lot of the transfers, I would have made sure that, or Ed Woodward would have made sure that United went after Vinny, or United went after Rodrigo. You guys do realize the stupidity in what you're saying, right? You guys do understand that for the last 15 years, we have gone after the Vinnies, the Rodrigos, and they've either said no, or they've either said yes and have come to United and have been absolutely terrible. Guys, our transfer business since Sir Alex Ferguson left has debatably been the worst in Europe, especially out of the major clubs, right? We're only just now starting to turn the ship in the right direction. And when Ineos came in, and guys, I have my gripes towards Ineos, but when they came in, they put themselves in such a bad financial position. The amount of times I've had to learn about the revolving credit lines that United are issuing year after year, I feel like I've become a New York Wall Street trader, guys. With the amount of terms I've heard about how United are pulling money from all these different kinds of things into loans we're trying to get. This is the position that we're in right now. We're not in a space where we can go and spend 150 for Declan Rice, or we're not a team that can go and make these massive transfers right now. It starts with what we're doing. It starts with waiting a year to buy Carlos Baleba. It starts with finding the release clause for Yuri Tillemans. And I'll be the person to tell you, maybe we did pay a little bit too much for Andre Santos. 50 million, around that, for a player who's relatively unproven. That deal eventually may come bite us. But the signing of Baleba, the signing of Tillemans, absolutely perfect, right? And I just, hopefully in 5-10 years, we can tell Lamine Yamal, come to us for 500 million pounds. I hope those days come soon, but it starts with this little stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if we're still paying off Antony for Ajax. Like the amount of money, the amount of debt we were in, and we're just working ourselves out of it. These are the right ways to work yourself out of it. And we need Champions League football again. We need international revenue. We need to continue to straighten the ship because we're still in a massive financial hole from kind of what I understood up until a couple months ago. But these are the types of deals that are worth it. These are the things that will push you in the right direction. But that'll be all from me. I'm so happy about this deal. And this is only going to be the first of 2 videos you're going to see from me tonight. I'm ready to film my Premier League predictions video, which I'm really looking forward to. Anyway, I'll talk to you all soon. God bless.